Welcome back, YouTubers. This is Omar from Near Mint Condition, and this is it. This is the final installment of my comprehensive X-Men in oversized hardcover and omnibus format reading order. If you haven't seen my previous two videos, because this is part 3, I suggest you go back and watch them. If you've already seen them, then you know what you're in for. And if anybody's wondering why there's 2 cosmic books out here, well, only one way to find out. Stay tuned. Kick it off with new X-Men. This is Grant Morrison's stuff. These are the things that were printed in 2000, 2001, 2002. And let's look through here real quick. Some of the artwork by Frank Quiley, Ethan Van Sciver, Lionel Yu. That's the annual right there. There have been 3 printings of this book, so this was probably one of the ones that has been reprinted the most. And what you probably gather by now from all the titles back there too, is that there's a lack of omnibuses during this time. It's just this and Astonishing X-Men. The Avengers vs. X-Men event is not an omnibus, and then the 2 cosmic books are omnis, but they don't have X-Men on the title. Oh, and by the way, the Eve of Destruction omnibus that I talked about in the last part of this series, that now has a solicitation. So it collects Magneto Dark Seduction 1 through 4, Uncanny X-Men 390 to 393, Annual 2000, X-Men 110 to 113, X-Men Forever 1 through 6, X-Men Declassified 1, X-Men Unlimited 30 to 33, X-Men The Search for Cyclops 1 through 4. So I almost called it. The only thing missing are the X-Men Liberators that I suggested in the Gambit and Bishop miniseries, as well as the Black Sun Magic. I'm actually surprised that it's not in there. Now, what does this collect here? Well, this is New X-Men. This collects New X-Men, formerly known as just X-Men, by the way. This is where the titles get damn confusing. 114 and 154 and Annual 2001. This follows up right after that Eve of Destruction omnibus that is coming out. That will go right before this and between Revolution. Oh, I forgot Phil Jimenez is also on artwork. Beautiful stuff. Next up is one of my favorite series of all time, Astonishing X-Men, written by Joss Whedon and art by John Cassidy. And this is Joss Whedon, the guy that wrote and created Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and also did this little tiny movie back in 2012 known as Avengers. So this collects Astonishing X-Men 1 through 24 and then Giant Size 1. It's got gorgeous artwork by John Cassidy. One of my all-time favorite stories. This for sure is in my top 5 X-Men favorite stories of all time, because it hits me right in the feels. He knows how to pull at my heartstrings. He knows what I love about X-Men. And damn, is he a fan first and a writer second, and it shows. This story is amazing. If you've never read it, these are available in trade paperback formats, Ultimate Editions, and I think there's 2 oversized hardcovers that collects all of this. Now, Marvel is damn foolish for not having this back in print, because that would sell out. This is one of the biggest sought-after books that needs to come back in print. Make that happen, Marvel. Next up is one of the first crossovers post this new modern age stuff. So this is House of M. This was originally solicited as an Astonishing X-Men New Avengers crossover, but Marvel decided to make it into a bigger event. And this collects House of M 1 through 8. And that's it. It's written by Brian Michael Bendis. It's got gorgeous artwork by Oliver Copiel. The story, it was okay at best. It's really padded out. Not a lot of meat in here, but it's okay, and the artwork is what really draws you into this. And it's got, of course, a couple of classic moments, such as this. That's where the 198 came from. That's where the Decimation storyline came from. Of course, none of that was collected in oversized format, which is ridiculous. Oh yeah, this also collects the little one-shots in the special edition of The Pulse, which was originally printed in like newspaper format. And then the script and the original art in the back. Next up is X-Men Supernovas by Mike Carey. This collects issues 188 through 199 and annual number 1. That is confusing as hell. Why? Well, because the title goes back to X-Men instead of New X-Men, because now there's another title called New X-Men, which was originally called New Mutants. Stay with me. I know, it's confusing. And then X-Men has already had an annual #1. Why does it have another annual? Well, because Marvel. That's why. They love renumbering this shit. I have no other explanation. This storyline was okay. This is Mike Carey, known for his Lucifer run, and a couple of other Vertigo titles. Actually, I kind of thought this was a fun run. Not as good as other people loved it, but I still thought it was fun. It's got art by Chris Bachalo and Humberto Ramos and Mark Brooks. And this is the only thing by Mike Carey. Well, I don't want to say only thing because he was part of the next big crossover. But this is one of the few books that has been collected from his run in oversized format. Everything else, standard edition. Okay, so here is the reason why I have Road to War of the Kings and War of the Kings Omnis in here. So, there's this huge crossover event, War of the Kings, between X-Men and the Cosmic books, and this is kind of the lead up to it. I won't talk about these that much, but Road to War of the Kings collects Son of M 1-6, which is the follow-up to House of M featuring Quicksilver, X-Men Deadly Genesis 1-6, which introduces us to the character of Vulcan, who plays a huge role in that upcoming crossover, Silent War 1-6, Secret Invasions Inhumans 1-4, Guardians of the Galaxy 1-12, because, God, if you haven't read Guardians of the Galaxy, you need to. Maybe that'll be another comprehensive reading order I can do. Nova 13-22, Nova, The Origin of Richard Rider, and the War of the Kings saga. That is everything in this book. And that leads to the War of the Kings crossover. Now, in here, you have the big chunk of Uncanny X-Men, which is 475 through 486. This is all written by Ed Brubaker, or at least the Uncanny X-Men stuff. That's why it's in here. And then you have the X-Men Emperor Vulcan 1-5 miniseries, Secret Invasion War of the Kings, X-Men Kingbreaker 1-4, which also features Vulcan and Havoc and Polaris and all those characters, War of the Kings Darkhawk 1 and 2, War of the Kings Warriors 1 and 2, War of the Kings the actual miniseries 1-6, War of the Kings Ascension 1-4, War of the Kings Savage Sword of Sakaar, and that is the son of Hulk. Nova 23-28, Guardians of the Galaxy 13-19, War of the Kings Who Will Rule, and the Marvel Spotlight War of the Kings. And that is everything in here, and that's why these are up here. Next up, we have X-Men Endangered Species. These are the backup stories to a lot of the ongoing titles, but this leads into the Messiah Complex. And this was Mike Carey and Scott Eaton's story. So let's look in here real quick. So this collects X-Men 200-204, Uncanny X-Men 488-491, X-Factor 21-24, and New X-Men 40-42. But it's so thin. That's because it's only the backup stories. It also contains the Endangered Species one-shot. This all leads up to the Messiah Complex, and it's also the return of Dark Beast, the character from the Age of Apocalypse, one of the 4 that made it over, who just recently showed up again. Next up, we have the actual event, Messiah Complex. And, oh my god, art by Mark Silvestri, one of my favorite X-Men artists of all time. Written by Ed Brubaker, Mike Carey. This was a really cool event. Actually, you know what? I really like this event. Because I had missed events like this where all the... Oh, Peter David as well. Where all the X titles were kind of talking to each other again. I love that about this. It was nice for them to be continuing into the next issue. You know, I was used to those 90s crossover events, so this was cool. This was nice. So this collects the Messiah Complex one-shot, Uncanny X-Men 492-494, X-Men 205-207, New X-Men 44-46, and then issues of X-Factor 25-27. And I have also included in this some follow-ups to this that don't have any X-Men issues, but I think they're kind of needed for the reading appreciation. So let's go look at those really quick. Okay, first up we have Utopia, Avengers X-Men crossover. This is the crossover by Matt Fraction. Once again, gorgeous artwork by Mark Silvestri in the one-shot. So it does contain the Avengers Uncanny X-Men, Utopia, and Exodus one-shots. Uncanny X-Men 513-514, Dark Avengers 7-8, Dark X-Men The Beginning 1, 2, and 3, and X-Men Legacy 226-227. And it's got a book in here, it's called X-Men The Confession, and then it's got materials from Dark Reign to Cabal. Won't talk about this much, but I think it's important because it's kind of the second or 2.5 storyline of Messiah Complex, Necrotia, and Second Coming. So this is more of a crossover between X-Force and Cable. And this collects the times and life of Lucas Bishop, 1, 2, and 3. It's the story of how Bishop follows Cable through time, because that's what Cable is doing. He took the baby Hope after Messiah Complex and is time traveling with her. And he's chasing him all through time. It's got Cable's issues 11 through 15, X-Force 14 and 16, X-Force, Cable, Messiah War one-shot, and X-Men Future History, the Messiah War source books. And that's it in here. Next up is what I like to call the second crossover between the Yost and Kyle run. It's got beautiful artwork by Clayton Crane. And this is X Necrotia. So this contains New X-Men 32, X-Force 11, X-Force 21 through 25, New Mutants 6 through 8, X-Men Legacy 231 to 234, X-Force New Mutants Necrotia one-shot, the X Necrotia The Gathering, which is the prelude to the books, and then material from the X-Force Annual. That's what's included in here. And then the series that wraps up that whole crossover that started with Messiah Complex. And that is Second Coming. So this collects Second Coming Prepare, X-Men Second Coming 1 and 2 one-shots, Uncanny X-Men 523 to 525, New Mutants 12 through 14, X-Men Legacy 235 to 237, and X-Force 26 to 28. This kind of ends that Kyle and Yost run that I love so much, because it brought back a lot of cool and awesome characters that I hadn't seen in a long time. And then we have Second Coming Revelations, which you don't really need. It's just kind of a companion book to the Second Coming. This collects some one-shots and miniseries, such as X-Men Hope, X-Men Blind Science, X-Men Hellbound 1, 2, and 3, and then X-Factor issues 204 to 206, which I don't know why that wasn't collected in the main run. But that is everything in here. Okay, next up is X-Men Age of X. This was kind of an event and a crossover between X-Men Legacy, which is what X-Men went on to become, by the way. So the title started with X-Men, adjectiveless, with Chris Claremont and Jim Lee in 1991. Changed over to New X-Men when Grant Morrison took over. Came back and changed the title to X-Men again after Grant Morrison left, because there was another New X-Men book. And then the title, when Mike Carey took over the book, changed over to X-Men Legacy. Holy shit. That is confusing. And I apologize. But that's Marvel for you. So this collects Age of X Alpha, X-Men Legacy 245 through 247, New Mutants 22 to 24, Age of X Universe 1 and 2, and the Age of X Historical Logs. Okay, so we have X-Men Schism first. This collects issues 1 through 5 of Schism. And these are all drawn by different artists. Carlos Pacheco, Alan Davis, Frank Cho. And it also collects Regenesis issue 1. This kind of sets up the events of the next big crossover. And also, this is collected in the Jason Aaron Wolverine Omnibus Volume 2, or Wolverine Goes to Hell. That's what it's called. So let's talk about the event. This kind of kicks it off, but what really kicks it off, and is completely not needed, is this Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness miniseries called X Sanction. It is the return of Cable, and for some unknown reason, he is fighting the Avengers and the X-Men. They just wanted to cash in on the name Jeff Loeb and Ed McGuinness, and this is the way to do it, and it's ridiculous and completely unnecessary, which is why it's not collected in the Avengers vs. X-Men hardcover, which we'll talk about now. So here is the big event. This is A versus X. This is the Return of the Phoenix, even though it retconned a lot of the Phoenix lore, but hey, we gotta sell some comic books, right? So, whatever. This collects Avengers vs. X-Men 0 through 12.1, which is the AVX issue. AVX versus 1 through 6, which is pretty much the fights. That's all it is. It's just a huge fight issue of like Wolverine versus Namor, Scarlet Witch versus Rogue, things like that. And it goes in between, so it kind of fits in. It's got some beautiful artwork though. And it also collects the webcomic, the Avengers vs. X-Men Infinite 1, 6, and 10. And it has a companion book. Avengers vs. X-Men, the companion. It's huge. It's a lot bigger. I'm not sure why neither one of these are marked as omnibuses, but whatever. This collects Avengers Academy 29 through 33, which Avengers Academy is phenomenal, by the way. Secret Avengers 26 through 28, Avengers 25 through 30, New Avengers 24 through 30, X-Men Legacy 266 to 270, Wolverine and the X-Men 9 through 16, and issue 18. AVX Consequences 1 through 5, Uncanny X-Men 11 through 20. That's right, 11 through 20, because that would be what is known as Volume 2 of Uncanny X-Men. They revamped it after 500 and so issues. So don't worry, the numbering system will be back later. Confusing, I know. And then the A-Babies versus X-Babies issue 1. I feel ridiculous even saying that, but it's an actual comic book. And it's not terrible. Okay, next up, there was a huge reshuffle in the Marvel offices for X-Men comics. And the guy that they hired to kind of fix some stuff is Brian Michael Bendis. So let's talk about the issues collected here. I'm not going to go through each one of these. I'm just going to briefly mention some. Most of the art in the all-new X-Men series is done by Stuart Eminem. So X-Men Legacy went on to become a Legion-focused title. And then Bendis took over these books. And Uncanny kept going and eventually restored its original numbering system. So Volume 1, here, let's do this. Let me pull out Battle of the Atom and I'll talk about what each of these hardcover collections collect. So you have Volume 1 of All New X-Men. That collects All New X-Men 1 through 10. And then you have Volume 2 collecting All New X-Men 11 through 15, 18 through 21, and X-Men Gold 1. But here's the Battle of the Atom crossover event. So this collects the missing issues, All New X-Men 16 through 17, Uncanny X-Men 12 through 13, because renumbering, again, so that would be Volume 3, Wolverine and the X-Men 36 through 37, X-Men Battle of the Atom one-shots 1 and 2, and also contains adjectiveless X-Men 5 through 6, because, hey, why the hell not? We need more X-Men titles, and that would be known as Volume 2 of that title. So this was the big crossover event where characters from the future come back to the past and cause a threat to our characters. And we'll look at Volume 4 really quick, but talk about Volume 3. So Volume 3 collects All New X-Men 22 through 30, Guardians of the Galaxy 11 through 13, because that's that crossover event. And then this is Volume 4, which collects All New X-Men 31 through 41. These are the stories where the original 5 X-Men come from the past to kind of settle things in the future with the older X-Men, because now Cyclops is kind of bad, because when he was taken over by the Phoenix during the Avengers vs. X-Men run, this might spoil something, but it's 5-6 years old now. But if you don't want to hear it, I'll pause it here. But he ends up killing Professor Xavier when he becomes the Dark Phoenix, so that's why he's kind of bad, I guess. And that is all new X-Men, and at the same time, Brian Michael Bendis is also writing the new Uncanny title, Uncanny X-Men. Most of this art is done by Chris Bachalo. So this is Volume 1, there's only 2 volumes of this. So this collects issues 1 through 11, and then issues 14 through 18. And this is the Cyclops side of the story, where he teams up with Magneto and Emma Frost, and he has his own team of New Mutants, and Magic is kind of a badass, I will say that, I'll give Bendis that. And here's Volume 2. We'll briefly look at this. So this collects Uncanny X-Men 19 through 35, and then it goes back to issue 600. That's right, the original numbering system. And then it collects annual number 1 of Uncanny X-Men, but also All New X-Men Annual 1. It's all in here. And now the Trial of Jean Grey was also done as an oversized hardcover, but that's collected in the All New X-Men Volume 4. Or, I'm sorry, Volume 3. But this stuff here wasn't collected. The one-shots of Black Vortex weren't collected. So, Black Vortex was the other Guardians of the Galaxy and X-Men crossover, but a lot of things change in here, like Angel gets his fire wings, Kitty Pryde ends up leaving the X-Men and going off to space with Peter Quill. And this collects Guardians of the Galaxy and X-Men, the Black Vortex Alpha, Guardians of the Galaxy 24 through 25, and keep in mind, this is not the DNA Guardians of the Galaxy, this is the Bendis Guardians of the Galaxy. Legendary Star-Lord 9 through 11, All New X-Men 38 and 39, Guardians Team Up issue 2, Cyclops issue 12, because of course he had his own ongoing series, which actually wasn't terrible, Nova 28, Captain Marvel 14, and Guardians of the Galaxy X-Men Black Vortex Omega, issue 1. This is Avengers X-Men Axis, written by Rick Remender, This is a follow-up to his Uncanny X-Force run and his Uncanny Avengers run. And this collects Avengers in the X-Men Axis 1 through 9. And that is it. It's kind of where the good guys are bad guys, the bad guys are good guys. It kind of flips the table on us. It's a story we've seen 100 times, and it's not done that great, actually. I'm surprised they never made an omnibus of this with all the miniseries, but that's all we got. Then we have this event, which has nothing to do with each other. It's not even a crossover event. Apocalypse just kind of shows up in each story. And this collects All New X-Men 9 through 11, a new title by Dennis Hopeless, not Bendis, because Bendis is done by now. Extraordinary X-Men, written by Lemire, 8 through 12, and Uncanny X-Men 6 through 10, and that one's written by Colin Bunn. Again, the stories have nothing to do with each other. They don't cross over at all. It's just stories focusing on Apocalypse, and that's it. And the final book that I have in oversized hardcover format, these last few books have been a damn letdown, I swear, is the IVX event. So this is Inhumans versus X-Men, and this collects IVX 0 through 6, and that is it. This is the story where the Inhumans let out the Terrigen Mist that's killing a bunch of mutants, and there's a huge fight. But guess what? For some damn reason, they don't decide to collect Death of X in here, which features the death of a major character and impacts the X-Men line. As you could probably tell by now, these events in the later years haven't been my favorites, but since I'm a completist, I have to own them in oversized hardcover format and omnibus format. And when these get re-released as omnibuses with more of those orphaned issues, I'm sure I'll buy them again. And that's it. That's everything that's been collected in oversized hardcover or omnibus format. If this is your first time watching the video, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. And please let me know in the comments down below what other comprehensive reading orders you want to see. I've heard anything from Batman to Fantastic Four to Ultimate Spider-Man, Avengers, things like that. I love doing these, so please let me know. Don't forget to tune in to our weekly show that comes out every Thursday, where we talk about comic books, anime, video games, manga, toys, and of course, collected editions. And don't forget to check out our Tuesday night shows at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's a live show. It's called Old Reader, New Reader, where we discuss older stories. And again, this was Omar. Thank you very much for joining me. This was my love letter to X-Men. Have a great day.